Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. So to start off, scene one. Last week, nearly all the US-based employees of the US Institute of Peace were fired. It had been taken over by the Department of Government Efficiency, and even though the US Institute of Peace is an independent entity and judicial suits continue on its legality, and meanwhile, the offices are shuttered. It was founded in 1984 after a nuclear standoff with the Soviet Union. And it was founded as well with some strong work and support from our denomination, the United Church of Christ. I read a testimony this week from Reverend Susan Hayward, who is a UCC minister and who worked at the U.S. Institute of Peace for 14 years. As she named, and I quote, "I worked with fearless Catholic sisters in Colombia who stood up to armed actors in defense of local communities, and with Buddhist monks and nuns in Myanmar who protected Muslims fleeing violent mobs. I supported efforts by Muslim leaders in Iraq to pursue reconciliation across sectarian divides, and I worked to advance religious literacy within broader U.S. foreign policy, helping ensure the U.S. was acting in pursuit of peace and human rights in a manner that respected religious diversity. It was hard and meaningful work. And this week, our country fired all of them. And I was reading about it this week and becoming discouraged because I'm guessing in all that happened, it could be that you missed this particular piece of bad news. Scene two. My email inbox. I know. I'm guessing most of you are not enthused to see the contents of your email inbox. And it's not that I'm exactly looking for sympathy, but I'm guessing most of you don't receive emails trying to tell you what to preach next week. One prominent, well-respected divinity school sent out an email this week with the subject line, "Be humble." The entire email was filled with articles warning preachers against the sin of pride and encouraging humility across political difference. Another email I received from an organization I've attended workshops with started by saying, from a retired clergy, "In my 50 years of ministry, I've never seen a time with more opportunities for congregations to make a difference. As the U.S. government downsizes, new opportunities will arise in healthcare, veteran care, environmental sustaining and protection work, support for the poor, and so much more." Another church consulting group that I know had the subject line, "Preaching our principles, not our politics," and went on to say that many congregation leaders worry about the nasty tone of the national discourse and feel compelled to call for civility. All of which made me want to kick them a little bit in the shins. Because, my friends, there are seasons where I admit I could use some humility. And yet, I must say that gutting of the social safety net is not an opportunity for mission work. It is an assault on the poor, an undermining of our elders, and an embarrassment for our nation that in the richest country on earth, people will go hungry to subsidize the rich. I do believe in preaching our values of faith strongly in the hopes that all political parties could wholeheartedly affirm the values of compassion, the full humanity of all people, including LGBTQ people, Black people, people who were born in a different country but have made this land a home, people who like to breathe clean air, people who appreciate a government that has restraints of due process, where every human has the right of free speech with liberty and justice for all. And if all political parties want to join me in that, that would be great. And so this week in particular, my friends, did not strike me as a moment to preach humility. Give me a long length of emails encouraging the church to have some courage and show up, if you please. All of which is to say, blessed are the peacemakers does not mean blessed are the passive. It does not mean blessed are the nice. And it certainly does not mean blessed are those who are accommodating of evil. For what is this peace that Jesus calls us to? And what is it going to take for us to get there? We try this instead on the side. Blessed are those who face violence with creativity, playfulness, courage, and compassion. Blessed are those who see humanity across difference. Blessed are those who change the script, who love an enemy, who care for a stranger. Blessed are those who are not confined to the roads of fear or hatred, but find ways where there was none before. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be known as children of God. Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is challenging, and has been challenging to his followers pretty much ever since he preached it. As we've been studying this week by week, we come to this work of peacemaking. As Jesus is naming a nonviolent resistance to wrongdoing. To face that which is wrong with action, with love, and a willingness to endure suffering rather than inflict it. What does blessed are the peacemakers look like? You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I say to you, do not resist an evildoer. If anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn your other also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, give your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the 2nd mile. You have heard it said, you will love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I say you love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. If you were to say, how do you make peace in a world of conflict where there is wrongdoing, oppression, tribalism, animosity, hatred, violence, and more? How do you make peace? How do you change a pattern? Because this is what you're going to hear in the rest of the world, is that there's 2 options. One is very amiable, accommodating, and appeasing. When faced with conflict, run and hide. Avoid the places where bad things happen. Avoid the news that tells things you don't want to hear. Hide physically in places that are distant, or hide in plain sight as our compassion ceases and our minds excuse wrongdoing. hide with thin excuses that there was nothing else we can do. This is a fearful road. And the other way to respond to conflict is to fight, to put on our armor and battle it out, to punch and fight, to use our anger to win, even if it requires violence of body or word, to dehumanize the enemy so you can better attack, and have a very narrow road of righteousness that is so high perhaps only you can achieve those goals. You who are ready to burn the world down along the way. 2 roads, 2 ways. Fight or flight. Rage or cower, eat or be eaten. Because you know how it goes. If there is wrongdoing, hatred, violence, especially when there is an imbalance in power, it seems like there is an authority that can do everything. Your options are to cower or fight. What does peace look like? If one is to use violence, start a weapon, start a war, show somebody you are destroying somebody else with dehumanizing, devaluing, and going down swinging, and if the other, that we've seen a lot of, is to hide, capitulate, give up your pride and values along the way, and go along out of fear. And what Jesus is asking his disciples to do is a third option: to hold integrity but refuse to do harm, to endure suffering and in fact be prepared to endure more suffering, that it might change the hearts of those around you. If you are struck on one cheek, not to fall in fear and not to not strike back, but to slowly and bravely, knowing that there is more violence in the future, to stand and turn the other cheek. Walter Wink has a great analysis of this, for you can imagine, okay, someone is standing, they're getting hit on the right cheek, and someone is facing them. If they were using their right hand, they would be slapped on the left cheek, not the right. And so to be hit on the right cheek, that's a backhand. It's intended not to harm, but humiliate. According to rabbinical literature, the penalty for punching someone is 4 coins, and for a backhand slap is 400. Unless, of course, you're hitting someone who is deemed to be inferior. If Jesus' audience was poor, oppressed, and humiliated people, as Walter Wink names, why does he counsel these already humiliated people to turn the other cheek? Because this action robs the oppressor of the power to humiliate. The person who turns the other cheek is in fact saying, try again. Your first blow failed to achieve its intended effect. I deny your power to humiliate me. Jesus continues to say that if you're poor and someone takes your outer garment as collateral on the loan, Jesus also suggests handing them your inner garment. As in, if they want your clothes, take them all. You can be naked and see who feels ashamed of themselves on the other side. And in this third story, as Roman soldiers are allowed to force someone's labor, but only to a limit, they could take anyone and make them carry something for 1 mile, and at Jesus' suggestion was to do more than was asked. And in so doing, to reveal the violence for what it is. As Walter Wink would name that this Jesus' third way seizes the moral initiative, finds a creative alternative to violence, is willing to suffer rather than retaliate, and shames the oppressor. And often does it with a sense of humor, or timing, or playfulness that gives agency back to the one who is intended to be humiliated. There's a reason that protest signs often involve humor. Isn't it the work of God to give a new perspective, a new possibility, to, in the way that felt set and done, like the options were limited, to open something else, to find one's humanity in a moment that was seeking to deny it, and in so doing, to open that possibility for those around you? The Sermon on the Mount has been a source of inspiration for nonviolent resistance movements across the world and across time. And Jesus' turn the other cheek is not just a tactical strategy. It's his ministry. It is a spiritual document, the Sermon on the Mount. For we are called not just to turn the other cheek in order to humiliate, but in order to express a love. To learn a love even which seems unlovable, to react with love even to that which seems intolerable, and to know that this way often involves sacrifice. But something in the room changes when the script moves around you. When suddenly, even if the perpetrator's heart is not moved, then perhaps someone that was standing next to them recognizes humanity and has a call within their soul for compassion that was not there before. And if someone that was standing with them was not moved, then perhaps someone that was standing alongside the humiliated discovers that there is more courage in the world than they thought existed before. Maybe from stunned silence, from fearful contemplation, instead, they realize within them soul the stirrings of a courage which wasn't. And even if not, even if the perpetrator is not moved, and one standing with them is not moved, and one standing next to the oppressed is not moved, within that person's soul, they claim an identity that is not victim, but agent. Their full humanity recognized and, as Jesus would name, claiming their inheritance as a child of God. For here I can make a choice. For here I can move. For here I can open new possibilities in the name of the God who created me. For what are we to do in a country that fired the Peacemakers? Hear this. We have the job of peacemaker as our birthright. Jesus is saying, wherever you are, from the highest to the lowest, even in the places of deepest humiliation, there is a place you can lead from. There is a place you can make peace. You have the power as a child of God, a co-creator of God's imagination, an opener of compassion, a finder of humor, a maker of peace. You can make a new way in the world with God. And if this sounds hard to do, you aren't wrong. Even Jesus' first disciples couldn't manage it when push came to shove the first time. For when Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane, some of the disciples tried to resist the soldiers with a sword. To which Jesus said, "No more of this." And the rest, they hid, denied, tried to be wherever the trouble was not, until Jesus showed them what the way looked like. that his nonviolent witness showed them how far he would go for love, even up to his death on a cross. As we don't know what the road ahead calls, there are many times we are going to find ourselves in places we wouldn't have wanted. And Jesus says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." Which it's hard to say, maybe that's us. That we can follow the way of love and compassion, of praying for enemies, of listening and courage, and the work of peace and justice that can open a new world, even if that's just the space where your feet stand. Thanks be to God that we have been given this call, this inheritance, this path. Amen.